gratitude is the highest state of consciousness closest to heaven. That when you're grateful, your mindset is very close to God. And, some people say, I can't meditate, I don't know how to visualize, I don't know how to do Course in Miracles. And I'll tell them, gratitude is actually a spiritual path. And if you did nothing but say thank you all day long, you wouldn't have to do the Course in Miracles or yoga or change your diet or do anything, because you would be in such an exalted state of consciousness that you wouldn't need any other spiritual path. And I used to know this guy, his name was Jeffrey, and his whole spiritual path was on giving thanks. And I would hang out with him for a day, and he would thank the policeman directing traffic. He would thank the waitress. He would thank a mother on the street for being a good mother. And, everywhere he went, he was busy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And this guy lives in he was a very happy person. And I realized that he was not grateful because he was happy, that he was happy because he was grateful. In fact, some business company did a survey many years ago, and they asked very successful people, which came first, happiness or success? And 2/3 of them said that happiness came first. In other words, they were not happy because they were successful, that they were successful because they were happy. So, when Maria teaches live you're happy, it's really, that's a spiritual path. And I often tell people that your gift to the planet is not what you do, but how you do it. In other words, it's the consciousness we're holding that determines what we're given to the planet or not. In fact, I sometimes have people I coach, and they say, I don't know if I should stay in my marriage. And I give them an odd answer. I said, it doesn't matter that much how you stay, or whether you stay or whether you leave. It matters how you stay or how you leave. Because if you stay with resentment and anger and bitterness and fighting, what's the use of forcing your body to stay under the same roof with somebody if it's just a dark vibe? If you're just nasty and angry, you're not really married. And I think the Course says something like, just because two people live under the same roof does not mean they're connected. You can still be very lonely sleeping next to somebody, but if you're not connected spiritually, then it's not a marriage. On the other hand, you can be on the other side of the world where somebody can even be passed on. And if there's love, there's a real relationship, there's a real connection. So it's the same thing with gratitude or complaint. That when we're in a consciousness of gratitude, we're blessing the whole world merely by the thoughts we're radiating. My friend used to confer a degree on people. You're now an MBU. You're now a mobile blessing unit. That's better than MA or MS. You're a mobile blessing, which means that wherever you go, you take a whole heart and you invite people into your heart and you recognize the spirit. You recognize who they really are. There was a famous Zen female master named Sono many years ago, and she had one teaching, and her one teaching was, thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. This was A Course in Miracles, but in Zen form 200 years ago. So somebody would come to her and say, I'm not getting along with my wife. She would say, thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. Another person would come and say, my back hurts. Thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. My business is working, and my finances are upset. Thank you for everything. I have no complaint whatsoever. And so the ego is the one that says complaints are really valuable. And in fact, the ego's entire world is based on complaints. It's all based on grievances and gaps and unfulfilled needs. And anytime you're in the consciousness of grievance, gap, or unfulfilled need, you know you're an ego. In fact, there's one Course in Miracle teacher who said, I have no needs. I have no needs. There's nothing I need, really. Everything I could ever need has already been given to me by Great Spirit. And so it's really important to examine what we think we need first before we can be happy. There's a guy named Christian Almerac. Maria, did you ever meet Dr. Happiness? Do you ever hear that name? You ever meet that guy?
No. Mm-mm.
Okay. He was a French homeopath, Dr. Christian Almerac. I met him once. He used to go to Course in Miracles meetings. And he had one teaching also. His one teaching was, is the thought that you're currently thinking the happiest thought you could think? And if not, what would be a happier thought you could think? This is the guy who had one teaching. He went around the world, and he was called Dr. Happiness. I don't know what happened to him. This was many years ago. But he was a happy guy because he was always reaching for the happier thought. I get to practice this yesterday. We live in a farm community. There's a lot of, we don't farm, but there's a lot of farms around us. And the next door neighbor has a big cattle pasture. And over the weekend, the farmer gathered all the cows some of the cows to take them to market. And he put them in a pen, I don't know, a couple dozen cows or 30 cows, and waiting to load onto the trip to where they go when they go to the bad place. I'll call it a bad place. And anyway, all these cows were mooing like crazy because they'd never been in a pen. And, we felt bad for them. First of all, they're going to market, but now they're stuck in a pen for 3 or 4 days before they get on the truck. And so I said to my partner, Dee, I said, I feel so bad for those cows. And she said, well, let's listen to the birds. Because there are cows mooing and there are lots of birds around. Okay, well, that's a shift in perception right there from the plight of these victimized cows to the birds. In fact, David Hoffmeister, he told a great story once. He said once he was in Denmark or someplace in Scandinavia, and they put the Course in Miracles meeting next to a slaughterhouse. And so while they were trying to have this miracles meeting, you hear all these cows being killed. And he said, first people got upset, and I told them, violence is in your mind. Violence is a thought that you're projecting onto the world. Death is in your mind. Death is a thought. In fact, if you're doing today's lesson, the calendar lessons, it's, everything I see represents a thought. And it says that the world is a blank slate, and we decide what we want to see, and we make up a thought, and then we project it onto the world. That seems to be the real world, when it's all because we had a desire to see something, and then we got to see it. So my partner Dee reminded me that for some reason I had the desire to see a victimized cow. And you can make an argument for that, sure. But then she said, well, why don't we just, the birds are having a good time, so let's focus on them. So in that moment, she was practicing Dr. Happiness's teaching that, is this thought you're currently teaching the happiest one you could think? And if not, what would be a happier thought? And I'll give you one more example. Then I'm going to ask you, if you want to play, if you would think about, is your current thought the happiest one? If not, is there one better? So we used to have rats come around the house, and we got a cat to get rid of them. And so one morning I had this blissful meditation. I was just seeing God, and Jesus was with me, and the angels and the heavens open up, and I was just, it's just the kind of meditation you love. And then I came down to the living room